Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flight Lieutenant Ryan Goff. Today marks the 80th anniversary of Operation Hydra, a major bomber command operation on the research centre at Peenemunde, located on the Baltic island of Usedom. Peenemunde was the site of development of guided missiles and rockets, with development of a V2 production plant underway. Over 600 RAF bombers flew in this raid, including Lancaster G for George, now part of the memorial's collection, as did other Lancasters crewed by Australians. Among those that died in the operation was Flight Sergeant Malcolm Graeme Medhurst, whose story will be told shortly. Today we pay our respects to the men and women commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. This evening we warmly welcome Mr. John King, President of the Returned and Services League of Australia, ACT branch, and also Mr. Greg Hood, representing the Air Force Association. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Club Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this live stream across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Gresford Public School from Gresford, New South Wales. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, flowers of the forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Flight Sergeant Malcolm Graeme Medhurst. Malcolm Medhurst was born in Brisbane on the 27th of June 1918, the son of Margaret and Malcolm Medhurst. He attended East Brisbane State School and went on to study accountancy while employed as a clerk. Following the outbreak of the Second World War, Medhurst served as a gunner in the 5th Field Artillery Regiment for a year before discharging to enlist in the Royal Australian Air Force on the 17th of August 1941. While he had lodged an application hoping to work as a transport driver in the RAAF, Medhurst was mustered to aircrew, going to train as an air bomber. Medhurst had a habit of going absent without leave, doing so for the first time during his training on the 9th of February 1942, when he was missing for an hour and a half. He was confined to barracks for 2 days as punishment, but this would prove not much of a deterrent. Embarking at Sydney on the 27th of April 1942, Medhurst arrived in Canada a month later. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, he was one of almost 27,500 RAAF pilots, navigators, wireless operators, air gunners, and flight engineers who, throughout the course of the war, joined Royal Air Force squadrons or Australian squadrons based in Britain. In Canada, Medhurst attended Aerial Observer School in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and Bombing and Gunnery School in Moss Bank, Saskatchewan. In August 1942, he was twice more found guilty of being absent without leave. His punishment amounted to 96 hours detention, fines, and being confined to barracks. Awarded his flying badge in early December 1942, later that month, Medhurst embarked for the United Kingdom, arriving early in 1943 and joining number 27 Operational Training Unit in early February. Based at RAF Litchfield near Derby, this unit trained night bomber crews. In early 1943, Medhurst joined his first operational squadron, number 103 Squadron, Royal Air Force, based at RAF Elsham Woods. This unit flew Lancaster heavy bombers against targets on mainland Europe. Soon after joining his squadron, Medhurst married Edith Mary Holm, a Women's Auxiliary Air Force member stationed at Lockfield on the 4th of August 1943. The marriage would not last long. On the night of the 17th of August 1943, a month after joining his first operational squadron, Medhurst took part in Operation Hydra, a bomber command attack on the research centre at Peenemunde, located at the Baltic coast of Ustum. This was the site of development of guided missiles and rockets, with development of a V2 production plant underway. Over 600 RAF bombers flew in the raid, which took place during the full moon, and the bombers flying at 2,400 metres instead of the normal altitude of 5,800 metres. Lancaster, G for George, now at the memorial, flew in the operation, as did other Lancasters crewed by Australians. A second covert operation, known as Whitebait, took place that night, a decoy raid of Mosquito aircraft sent to bomb Berlin to divert German fighters. Other squadrons were dispatched to German airfields to prevent the Luftwaffe night fighters taking off. The raid was, in many ways, a success. The Luftwaffe lost 12 night fighters and about 170 German civilians were killed, including 2 V2 rocket scientists. Although research and development continued almost immediately and test launches resumed in October, plans for some German V2 facilities were changed, and the unfinished production plant for V2s was moved to Middlework, built in an underground factory in the Harz Mountains to avoid Allied bombing. On the day after the successful Whitebait diversion, Luftwaffe Chief of Staff General Hans Jeschnik shot and killed himself. Of course, there were Allied losses. After Luftwaffe realised that the attack on Berlin was a diversion, about 30 night fighters flew to the Baltic coast and shot down 29 of the 40 bombers lost during the operation. Among those lost was Medhurst's Lancaster, which failed to return to base. The aircraft had been shot down, crashing at Terup in central Denmark, with all crew members killed. Flight Sergeant Philip Capon, Sergeant William Graves, Sergeant Clarence Lee, Flight Sergeant Ernest Roy Biggs, Pilot Officer Peter O'Donnell, Sergeant Cyril Williams, and Flight Sergeant Malcolm Medhurst, who was 25 years old. Today, his remains lie in Kiel War Cemetery in Germany. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flight Sergeant Malcolm Medhurst, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.